Heck, I shave and I look 12. I shave and I look 12. That's how that works. Yeah. No, Jamie's not allowed to shave because the cats don't recognize him. Yep. All right. All right. Shaving stories and Deuteronomy. We have fun at this church. Well, welcome back, everyone, to Deuteronomy. It's another Wednesday, and today's a twofer, Deuteronomy 19 and Numbers 35, because you really need one to understand the full context of the other. So, we get to get 2 chapters for the price of 1 tonight. Why James is in the back of the class tonight with the dunce hat. So, I think we're in for a good one. As I was reading through this, really, the cities of refuge make a lot more sense when you understand their purpose and how they help things from being misused. But before we get into all that, let's go to the Lord with a word of prayer. Thank you, Lord, for this time and this place to get together and fellowship with believers, Lord. As iron sharpens iron, we sharpen each other because, we're not all going to be correct. And it's just an awesome place to get together and learn more about you, Lord. And by learning the Old Testament, we see how important the New Testament is, as the New Testament and the Old Testament intertwine, and we start to see the full picture and the full story that is Jesus Christ. So for everyone here down the line, please open up our eyes, ears, and hearts to hear the message that you're trying to tell us, Lord. And just be with us now as we're coming here to learn more about you. Amen. So, funny enough, I wrote this on Monday, and I usually write these the night before, so I thought Tuesday was Wednesday. It's funny how your body, or you just kind of, your routine changes, and then you get out of sync. All right, so Deuteronomy 19, verse 1. So, when the Lord your God cuts off the nations whose land the Lord your God gives you, and you dispossess them, which means to clear them out, and settle in their cities and in their houses, you shall set aside 3 cities for yourself in the midst of your land, which the Lord your God gives you to possess. You shall prepare the roads for yourself and divide into 3 parts the territory of your land, which the Lord will give you as a possession, so that any manslayer may flee there. So, these are 3 additional cities of refuge on the other side, on the west side of the Jordan River. They are to be centrally located and easy to get to. And that's going to be really important coming up here. So let me reference Deuteronomy 4, 41 through 43 to reference the other cities on the east side of the Jordan. 41 through 43. There it is. Then Moses set apart 3 cities across the Jordan to the east, that a manslayer might flee there, who unintentionally slew his neighbor without having enmity toward him. By fleeing to one of these cities, he might live. Bezer in the wilderness on the plateau of the Reubenites, Ramoth and Gilead for the Gadites, and Golan in Bashan for the Massonites. So those are the 3 cities on the east side of the Jordan. Moses is commanding that they set 3 cities on the west side of the Jordan for cities of refuge. And let's see here. And in Joshua 20, we'll see that they actually did this, and it worked out very well. So Joshua 20, verses 7 through 8. So they set apart Kadesh in Galilee on the hill country of Naphtali, and Shlem, or Shechem, or however you pronounce that, in the hill country of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, the hill country of Judah. So those are going to be the 3 additional cities that they will add here in the future. All right. So going back to Deuteronomy here. Does that make sense to everybody? So they're going to have 6 cities total in all of the Israelite land as cities of refuge. And these are Levite cities as well. So moving on to verse 4. Now this is the case of the manslayer who may flee there and live when he kills his friend unintentionally, not hating him previously. As for when a man goes into the forest with his friend to cut wood, and his hand swings the axe to cut down the tree, and the iron head slips off the handle and strikes his friend so that he dies, he may flee to one of those cities to live. Otherwise, the avenger of blood might pursue the manslayer in the heat of his anger and overtake him, because the way is long, and take his life, though he was not deserving of death, since he had not hated him previously. Therefore I command you, saying, you shall set aside 3 cities for yourself. So 3 additional cities. So I did quite a bit of research into this. So these cities, appointed Levitical cities, are where a manslayer would flee until the issue was settled. And this was really for unintentional, non-premeditated murders and accidental killings, with no malice in their heart previously. And the Levites would investigate and pass judgment on the matter to determine guilt. And it's kind of, for the Avenger of Blood, which sounds like a rad, heavy metal band name. I would listen to an album by the Avenger of Blood. I'm just saying. So the Avenger of Blood was an appointed member of the family whose kin was murdered or killed, who would avenge the killing and restore the family honor. And this was a practice that is referenced in Genesis 9, verse 6. Let me pull this up here. Genesis 37. All right. So 9 verse 6. Whoever sheds a man blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man. So an Israelite family would have an appointed family member called it's like Goel, or Goel. I'm not exactly sure how they'd pronounce it. But this was an appointed person to really protect the honor of a family. So if one of their kin got killed accidentally or murdered, that person would be the avenger of blood to go salvage the family's honor. So it's just a practice that was held during that day and time. Yeah. So that's the avenger of blood that the person would be fleeing from. So the person would be fleeing from this man and protected from this man until the investigation was settled. And that's only if he made it to the city before the avenger got him. Because if the avenger got him on the way there, then he was fair game. So now let's jump to Numbers 35. Because I have a few pointed out here, but it's really going to make a lot more sense if we just go through the whole chapter. Let's go back in time to Fred's series of numbers. The book of math. I don't know, it was still pretty fun going through numbers. I have to say that because Fred's here. No, I had a good time. So I'm gonna read through this whole chapter just in one chunk, and then we'll kind of dissect pieces from it for Numbers 35. So 35 verse 1. Now the Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab, by the Jordan, opposite of Jericho, saying, Command the sons of Israel that they give to the Levites from their inheritance of their possession cities to live in, and you shall give to the Levites pasture lands around the cities. The cities shall be theirs to live in, and their pasture lands shall be for their cattle and their herds and all their beasts. And this is kind of important too, because if the manslayer flees the city or is outside of the city, they're not protected by the city. So I can imagine there'd be some contention if the manslayer or the Avenger of Blood caught the manslayer out in the farmland of the city. Just kind of an interesting note there. Verse 4. The pasture lands of the cities which ye shall give the Levites shall extend from the wall of the city outward 1,000 cubits around. You shall measure the outside of the city on the east side 2,000 cubits, on the south side 2,000 cubits, on the west side 2,000 cubits, and on the north side 2,000 cubits. With the city in the center, this shall become theirs as pasture lands for the cities. Now, specifically, the cities of refuge. The cities which ye shall give the Levites shall be 6 cities of refuge, which ye shall give for the manslayer to flee to. In addition to them, ye shall give them 42 cities. All the cities which ye shall give the Levites shall be 48 cities, together with their pasture lands. As for the cities which ye shall give the possession of the sons of Israel, ye shall take more from the larger, and ye shall take less from the smaller. Each shall give some of his cities to the Levites in proportion to the possession of which he inherits. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and say to them, When you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, ye shall select for yourselves cities to be your cities of refuge, that the manslayer who has killed any person unintentionally may flee there. The city shall be to you as a refuge from the avenger, so that the manslayer will not die until he stands before the congregation for trial. The cities which you are to give shall be 6 cities of refuge. You shall give 3 cities across the Jordan, and 3 cities in the land of Canaan. They are to be cities of refuge. These 6 cities shall be for the refuge of the sons of Israel, and for the alien, and for the sojourner among them, that anyone who kills a person unintentionally may flee there. But if you struck him down with an iron object so that he died, he is a murderer, and the murderer shall surely be put to death. If you struck him down with a stone in the hand, by which he will die, and as a result he died, he is a murderer, and the murderer shall surely be put to death. Or if you struck him with a wooden object in the hand, by which he might die, and as a result he died, he is a murderer, and the murderer shall surely be put to death. The avenger of blood himself shall put the murderer to death. He shall put him to death when he meets him. If he pushed him out of hatred, or threw something at him, lying in wait, and as a result he died, or if he struck him down with his hand in enmity, which means with malice, and as a result he died, the one who struck him shall surely be put to death. He is a murderer. The blood avenger shall put the murderer to death when he meets him. But if he pushed him suddenly and without enmity, or threw something at him without lying in wait, or with any deadly object of stone, and without seeing it, dropped it on him so that he died, while he was not his enemy or seeking his injury, then the congregation shall judge between the slayer and the blood avenger according to these ordinances. The congregation shall deliver the manslayer from the hand of the blood avenger, and the congregation shall restore him to his city of refuge to which he fled, and which he shall live in till the death of the high priest who is anointed with holy oil. But if the manslayer at any time goes beyond the border of his city of refuge to which he may flee, and the blood avenger finds him outside the border of his city of refuge, and the blood avenger kills the manslayer, he will not be guilty of blood, because he should have remained in his city of refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the manslayer shall return to the land of his possession. These things shall be for you a statutory ordinance throughout all your generations and all your dwellings. If anyone kills a person, the murderer shall be put to death at the evidence of witnesses, but no person shall be put to death on the testimony of one witness. Moreover, you shall not take a ransom for the life of a murderer who is guilty of death, but he shall surely be put to death. You shall not take ransom for him who has fled his city of refuge, that he may return to live in the land before the death of the priest. So you shall not pollute the land in which you are, for blood pollutes the land, and no expiation can be made for the land for the blood that is shed on it, except by the blood of him who shed it. You shall not defile the land in which you live, in the midst of which I dwell, for I am the Lord dwelling in the midst of the sons of Israel. So I know that's a lot to go through. However, it's important because it brings up some of the limitations. So if the manslayer is judged to be innocent and delivered from the hand of the blood avenger, he still has to live in that city. So even though he's not put to death, he's still not sent home either. And that's a very important distinction, because he still suffers a consequence, like being imprisoned. Yeah. For taking the life, even if it was unintentional. So, and it's also important, let's see here. Yeah, so covered if the avenger gets him outside of the city. Already did that. Okay. Just making sure I hit all these notes here. So part of it too is that here. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to cover for that section right there. So back to Deuteronomy after that little detour. Verse 8 here. Let me find my place. If the Lord your God enlarges your territory, just as he has sworn to your fathers, and gives you all the land which he had promised to give to your fathers, if you carefully observed all this commandment which I command you today, to love the Lord your God and to walk in his ways always, then you shall add 3 more cities for yourself besides these 3, meaning the 3 on the west side of the Jordan River. Still, they were only going to get that land by obedience. Verse 10 here. So innocent blood will not be shed in the midst of your land, which the Lord your God gives you as an inheritance, and the blood guiltiness be on you. So a big part of the reason why they said the cities of refuge need to be centrally located and the roads have to be very good is it does the person who's fleeing no good if he can't get there. He has to make it into the city. Yes, very quickly. So, and back in Numbers 35, it's kind of a very important allusion to Jesus when it says that they have to remain in the city of refuge if they're judged innocent from the manslaying, but they still have that punishment until the death of the high priest. So even though they're innocent, they're not released until the death of the high priest. But Jesus, being our high priest, gives us the freedom to essentially go back home, which would be heaven. So I think that's kind of a nice little looking back to look forward. I mean, or at least that's what I got out of it. So, any questions, you guys? Any thoughts? So I did have one question that I was looking into that I couldn't find an answer for. So what if the manslayer kills the avenger of blood? That's what I was looking up. I'm like, what would they do in this situation? Yeah, would it be self-defense or would it be murder? But if he was outside the city walls, and Okay, well, so there's two scenarios here. There's one on his initial journey into the city of refuge. Like, what if he kills the manslayer then? Is that self-defense, or is it double homicide? And there's one, like, if the Avenger of Blood catches him out in the fields outside of the city, and he kills the Avenger of Blood, is that a new murder? Yeah, I just thought it was like an interesting question. Like, so the reason why I thought it was really important to go through Numbers 35 was there's just so many other little questions that go into the Avenger of Blood and what it means and why they would even have to flee in the first place. And because, like, Avenger of Blood could have been just like, kind of like their version of police, but it's not. It's a family member related to the family of the person who died. Yeah, honor killing, really. And what I was reading on it is like, I get the practice makes sense to restore the honor of a family if when you don't have like any police force or anything like that or any sort of like really criminal justice system, which they didn't have back in the day. But now, like, one would conceivably think that it's not, much needed anymore. No. So the movie Next of Kin. Okay. This required church viewing. So, okay. All right. I think the only other thing I wanted to touch on for that was that the blood defiles the land. And the only thing that rescues the land from that is the blood being spilled of the person who defiled the land in the first place. Because expiation is really the word there for that. And that means restoration, really. Or what's another good word for expiate? A more common word we'd use. Redeem, almost. Or cleanse, I think would be another. It's just not a word we use very often, but yeah, expiate, to cleanse the land. But this is all part of them being holy and set apart, and, oh, that was the other thing. This example they give is so specific. You're in the woods, you're cutting down trees, and, oh, the metal piece just seemed to fly off the axe handle and kills your friend. It's such a specific example. Woo. Oh, I never noticed. Uh, Atonement. Okay, there we go. Yep. Atonement. Expiate. Atonement. There we go, Google. Yep. All right. So that covers all that. All right. All right. Finally. Now, verse 11, which is where I think we're at. But if there is a man who hates his neighbor and lies in wait for him and rises up against him and strikes him so that he dies, and he flees to one of these cities, then the elders shall send and take him from there to the and flees to one of the cities. And the elders of the city shall send and take him from there and deliver him to the hand of the avenger of blood, that he may die. You shall not pity him, but you shall purge the blood of the innocent from Israel, that it may go well with you. So, why do you think it calls out specifically not to pity this person? An actual murderer with malice, but the other part of this is it's premeditated. They hated this person. They knew it was wrong. They did it anyways. It's premeditated, so they let the evil in their heart, which is also why I think it says to purge the evil from among you. So, yeah. So the guilty need to be punished and the innocent protected, just like it said in 19:10. So the innocent blood will not be shed in the midst of your land, which the Lord your God gives you as an inheritance, and the blood guiltiness be on you. So that's why the guilty had to be punished and be put to death. All right. Verse 14. You shall not move your neighbor's boundary mark, which the ancestors have set, in your inheritance which you will inherit in the land that the Lord your God gives you to possess. What are y'all laughing about? Yeah. Yeah, don't move property lines. Well, it's funny in a way that it calls out moving property lines, because, there's 12 tribes of Israel, 11 of them get inheritance land. Obviously the Levites get cities in each of the land. But then it's just like, what if they want to kind of massage the numbers? Oh, that's really our pasture land. Yeah, a lot of wars fought over moving property line. Well, I mean, let's call it what it is. Stealing. But this also enshrines personal private property rights from God. And, some people are trusted and given different things, by whatever God gives them in their life, And when you start kind of stealing, maybe you're spitting in the face of God. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Well, and it's interesting, too, because it says, which the ancestors have set. So I think it's kind of a warning for younger guys not to go messing with what their ancestors have put in place. It's probably worked really well for a long time, but Ford has a better idea. I think that's kind of a warning to the younger generation there. But, God divvied up this land for the tribes. So if he's giving it to them and they're like, well, I'm just going to take that. 1, they're coveting. 2, they're stealing. 3, they're spitting God's eye. It's like a triple whammy. All right. Oh, yeah, I put in here, don't override the work and decisions of your ancestors. They might have known what they were doing. Kind of like the Constitution. All right. Moving on to 15. So verse 15, a single witness shall not rise up against a man on account of any iniquity or any sin which he has committed. On the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses, a matter shall be confirmed. If a malicious witness rises up against a man to accuse him of wrongdoing, Then both men who have dispute shall stand before the turning page, the Lord, before the priests and the judges who will be in office in those days. The judges shall investigate thoroughly, and if a witness is false, if the witness is a false witness and he has accused his brother falsely, then you shall do to him just as he had intended to do to his brother. Thus you shall purge the evil from among you. The rest will hear and be afraid, and never again do such an evil thing among you. Thus you shall show no pity, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. Okay, kind of a big one here. So first thing here, a single witness, they always need more than one witness, on account of any iniquity or any sin. And at first it seems like, well, wouldn't someone be able to hide, iniquity or sin? But I was kind of thinking about it. I'm like, no, whatever's done in darkness eventually comes to light. There will be 2 to 3 witnesses. It'll happen. Yeah. Circumstantial, yes. So in today's criminal justice, from what I was kind of reading, if they found bloody fingerprints and like say a bloody murder weapon that that was tied to the same crime, those would be 2 separate witnesses. The evidence would be witnesses to confirm the wrongdoing in today's terms. So, but in today's thing, our court system, I think, is a lot more complicated in some ways than what they had laid out in the Bible. Because some things nowadays, even if one person says something, it can disrupt an entire person's life. Take, for instance, like instances of rape. You get one person makes one murmur about it, and they really don't need all that much evidence, or really any evidence, before they just label a person one thing or another. And I think Jamie and I were talking about plea deals the other day, where most people just take a plea deal rather than go through all this different stuff to prove their innocence. Yep. Whoever has the better lawyer or the funds or the most money. Because I read this story about a girl in high school who claimed that one of the black football players raped her, and he spent 20 years in prison, got out, and they made their amends, and he had a voice recorder with them, and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry I did that to you. I know you didn't rape me, but I just said that you did so my parents wouldn't get mad at me." He had a football career. He had, his whole life going for him. He spent 20 years in prison because she didn't want to get in trouble by her parents. And you know what the court awarded him? $200,000, and she got nothing. I think she should have had to do 20 years in prison, because they're saying that for those 20 years of his life, he was only making $10,000 a year. That's like saying his life was worthless. Well, and that's the other thing too, is like he would only get that 20 grand if the courts could somehow, or 200 grand if the courts could somehow collect it from her. That's never going to happen. So that's clearly injustice, because she just didn't want to get in trouble with her parents for having sex. So she lied and said that the dude raped her. No. So I've heard about this. As soon as a woman claims rape in today's court system, there really is no going back. And there has been cases where women have done this and tried to go back, and the court system pushes it forward and keeps pushing it forward. There's no hey, I take my allegations back. Nope. Yep, they try them without her. There's so much money wrapped up in it. Not to get too off topic, but But I strongly believe, she should get the same punishment he got, for justice. Not money, justice. And that's why I bring all this up. False witnesses were to suffer the same punishment as the accused. If they lied for a manslayer, they'd be put to death. And I think it's very important. Moving kind of on here. So here in fear, even the Bible knows that strong punishment is a deterrent. Weak or inconsistent punishment is not. Does this sound familiar for today's events? California is really weak on punishment, and their city is a cesspool. So, people don't get in trouble. It's like, we've seen it around here a little bit. Someone will get arrested, they'll be out same day. Just. Yep, like the guy who shot up Midtown on about it. Yep. Oh, he bonded out? Oh, okay. Yeah. So. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So there's that. Regarding the no pity comment, thus you shall show no pity. Whatever evil was planned to be committed was to be punished. Because it was premeditated, planned, possibly accomplished, there was to be no pity because of the evil in these people's hearts. These people knew what they were doing was wrong and went ahead anyways. Now, the other big part of this is an eye for an eye, not to punish more than what was deserving. So to exact revenge, or to exact justice, not revenge. That's what I meant to say. Because sometimes when we get wronged, our first instinct is to go like full scorched earth. And especially if it was our kid. To be honest, I'd probably still struggle with that. If someone hurt one of my kids, I'd probably go nuclear. Yeah. I know Jesus says not to do it. And we're getting to that, Fred. You're always just you and James both, always just a verse ahead. Yep. And I put in here, example, kill a man's whole family for the death of one man. Justice, not supreme vengeance or revenge. We need to check our motives. Whether we're just getting justice and only being righted for the wrong, or if we're going full scorched earth. So now let's go to Matthew 5:38 through 39. Gosh. Oh, stealing my punchline. I should know I'm in for it when I have both Fred and James. All right. Matthew 5:38. You have heard it was said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evil person, but whoever slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other to him also. So, actually 38, 39. Yeah. So, this scripture in Deuteronomy was meant for the courts to establish justice, not for us to get back at someone in our personal relationships or because of an insult or perceived slight. So, I forget exactly where it says it, but in the Bible it's like, the vengeance is the Lord's. The Lord will settle these debts, for sure. I'm sure he has bean counter angels up there with a Caesar's ring and a receding hairline sitting at the heaven's computers with an abacus. Yeah, vengeance is the Lord's. Yeah, we are not to retaliate, but to pursue justice. To retaliate was to go against the godly principles, especially if we were taking retaliation into our own hands. I think the Bible says a lot on when we take things into our own hands and try to settle things ourselves. We usually go astray. So do you guys have any questions, thoughts, concerns? I go off point at all? Yeah, I didn't know when I was writing this one. It was going to be a twofer, but it was just important. Well, if nobody has any comments or anything besides James, I can see him standing back there. What's your comment? Yeah.
They had 2 chances, and they blew it.
Hey, look, you take the Danny DeVito approach. No, you take the Danny DeVito approach. So anyway, I started blasting. All right. Well, that concludes Tubbs. However, this Friday, Pray and Play is starting back up again. We will make a holy ruckus, joyful noise to the Lord. Yep. So we can be in here and we can sing I Saw the Light, which is actually not a song we've done yet. And then this Sunday, we have regular church service at 11. And this coming Wednesday, of course, more Tubbs for Deuteronomy 20. I think that's all we have coming up. Oh, the 17th, we have a Christmas dinner after church, food, as the Peanut Gallery is saying, food on the 17th, which means that everybody needs to bring food. So, yes, don't eat breakfast, just come to church. We're going to make sure the service is extra long. Get us really hungry. Fred just raised his eyebrow at me.
Y'all know better to get the fat man food. It will be a short service, I guarantee.
Which is why we're having James preach. No, all right. Jamie's like, turning off the hearing aid quick. All right. All fun aside, we're going to enter into personal and private prayer requests, and I will see you guys next time.